Greetings, everybody. It's RPG Grandma, and we're continuing Barsoom, The Warriors of Mars role-playing game by TSR. So the Barsoom Code of Battle. It's found, they talk about it in two places. Once under the mass melee combat, the mass combat rules, and once under the individual melee rules. So we're going to combine them because you need both. The inhabitants of Mars are ethical to the extreme in battle. Thus, the attacker will never face a weapon superior to his own, for this would violate the code. The equal and lesser weapons are given below. This is the code. Not all the cultures follow it, and there are people who, when they can get away with it, they don't follow it. But they definitely... It's definitely the code on the planet, the major code. Attack weapon. Radium rifle. Defender's choice, any hand or shoulder weapon. Attack weapon. Radium pistol. Defender's choice, radium pistol, bow, javelin, hurled sword, lance, long sword, short sword, hatchet, or dagger. Attacker's weapon, a bow. Defender's choice, as above for radium pistol. Attacker's weapon, a javelin. Javelin, hurled defender. Javelin, hurled sword. Lance, long sword, short sword, hatchet, or dagger. Attacker's weapon, a lance 40 foot long. Defender's choice, as above for javelin. A lance 20 foot long. Defender's choice, hurled sword, lance, long sword, short sword, hatchet, or dagger. Attacker's weapon, a long sword. Defender's choice, long sword, short sword, hatchet, or dagger. Attacker's choice, short sword. Defender's choice, short sword, hatchet, or dagger. Attacker's choice, hatchet. Defender's choice, hatchet or dagger. And attacker's choice, dagger. Defender's choice, dagger. Once you have an idea of the order these run in, for the most part, you're going to be matching most of the time. And then going down the list as it decreases. So basically you got to memorize the list, and then there's a few nuances in here, and you're good. If the Barsoomian Code of Battle is violated by a player, not necessarily the NPC, the player, his opponent or opponents immediately increase one class due to their ferocity at this villainy. All right. Furthermore, if combat is at a 1-to-1, and the individual combat rules are in use, this increase is permanent. So in the mass combat, not permanent as long as individual combat rules are not in use. Once you start role-playing and you're using individual combat rules, the opponents go up one level and they stay there forever. Okay? Per the rules as written. All right. And then in the individual combat section, we have more on the Barsoomian Code. It must be remembered at all times that when men face men, their single desire was generally to come to grips with bare steel. This usually applied to the Green Martians as well. For example, we have John Carter blasting them by the score, yet they do not in turn shoot back with their radium rifles, but rather they finally gallop up and overcome him with sword. Therefore, the referee should not allow the attacker to use missile weapons unless he faces an animal or an opponent he cannot otherwise reach. The code seems to have slipped considerably during the times of active warfare between empires. So, when you read the books, you'll see this. You'll see some variation. but it's considered really bad form. And when I say this is a bravado culture, and here you are trying to role play in it, and maybe you have 2 hit points, don't get shot. I really mean that. Don't get shot. All right. Now, why do we have the animal versus animal rules? Well, they got a little bit more on that. Certain dwellers on Barsoom tame and use animals in warfare. The Greenmen, for example, make extensive use of the callet for this purpose. Some Warvorians make use of banths in a like manner. That's like a 10-legged giant African lion, just so we have an idea. Players may attempt to capture and tame like animals for their own use. While animal versus animal situations are not common, their use in warfare and the possibilities of their use in individual adventures are such that a provision for combat between animals was necessarily part of the rules. They're also used for guard animals. Some of these trained animals, such as the banths, the apts, the callets, they do. Some are sacred. Some are in captivity for the purposes of gladiator games. Trained to eat the prisoners, that kind of thing. Some help with guarding the herds of thoats, stuff like that. So depending on, like, callets would be fall in that. Callets are kind of like the Martian version of a dog. So they do have tamed animals for riding, for warfare. So that's why they have those combat rules. Now we're going to move on to assassins. Remember I said there was kind of sort of a class? Well, there's kind of sort of a class. And had this game kept going, I'm sure it would have become its own class in this game. But we got what we got from 1974. So here we go. Assassins. These silent killers can range from 5th to 10th level of combat ability. They can strike anyone for pay. And killing one is worth twice the normal value of points according to his level. Hiring an assassin, his fee, and so on will normally be a feature of campaign play. See next section, and will always be handled by a referee. All right, so I know I've gone over wounds, and I don't know if I went over multiple opponents. I'll probably do another video on that, but at any rate, this gives you an idea. This is the closest thing we have to like an NPC specialty class in here, even though they had scientists, mad scientists, even though they had all kinds of other stuff in the books. So whatever this in the books and makes logical sense to have in your setting, you make NPCs for that, okay? Now, based on this information, if for some reason players ended up playing an assassin, that would be something they would switch to. If it was me, I would have them switch. They could make the switch 5th level and above, if that's what they're going to be. Prior to that, they're probably just regular shady dealing fighters, trying to be cunning and everything and getting away with stuff. All right, so that's where we're at there, because the next little section here is combat rules we already covered. There might be a little section in here. I'll have to double check that I didn't cover, but I may have. And if I didn't, I'll make a video on it. Next video will be, what are campaigns described as in Warriors of Mars? And why is that interesting? So we already know we have a sandbox setting. What about the campaigns? Anyway, everybody have a great day, and bye.